there's a moment that comes right after recognition, and it's not intellectual anymore. It's not theoretical, or it's personal. Because once you recognize that your behavior wasn't personality, once you see that it was survival, a different question starts to surface. Not why did I do this, but what did it cost me to live this way for so long? That's where this episode begins. In the last episode, we talked about recognition, about how survival behaviors get misread as lack, how restraint gets labeled as disengagement, how discipline gets mistaken for absence, how effort disappears when systems don't know how to read it. And for many people listening, something clicked. You saw yourself. And once that happened, you can't unsee the next part. Most people don't realize this all at once. It usually happens quietly. You're driving home or staring at the ceiling late at night, and suddenly you see it. That things you thought was just personality was actually a shield. The calm one, the peacemaker, the low maintenance one, not because that's who you are, but because that's who you had to be. Because survival isn't free. It never was. Calibration kept you safe, but it also charged you interest. Quietly, daily, over years, and that interest compounds. Let's slow this down and name something clearly. This isn't burnout. Burnout is the cost of doing too much. What many people are carrying is something different. It's the cost of simply existing in an environment where you have to monitor yourself to be safe. I call this cognitive debt. Survival strategies work. They do exactly what they're designed to do. They keep you employed. They keep you out of trouble. They keep you alive. They keep you moving. And for a long time, that feels like a fair trade. And you adjust your behavior and you buy safety. But here's the part we rarely say out loud. Survival is a transaction. You don't just get safety, you purchase it. And the currency you pay with is yourself. Your voice, your spontaneity, your rest. At first, the trade feels fair until you see the interest rate. Because survival behaviors don't stop charging once the threat passes. They charge interest, high interest, compound interest, quietly, daily, in the background, until one day you wake up exhausted and think, why am I so tired? I didn't even do that much. And here's why. When you spend years monitoring yourself, your tone, your posture, your facial expressions, your timing, your emotional temperature, you don't just spend energy, you spend spontaneity. You stop being fully present in the moment because you're busy managing the moment. You don't just live your life, you supervise yourself through it. In unsafe environments, people don't stay whole, they split. One part becomes the actor, the version the world sees. Another becomes the director, monitoring tone, posture, expression in real time. And the third becomes the critic, reviewing every move instantly. Actor, director, critic, all running at once. That's not anxiety. That's labor. And that kind of self-supervision is expensive. It's why there's no such thing as an easy day in an unsafe environment. Nothing went wrong, but the search for what might go wrong never stopped. The absence of threat does not mean absence of vigilance. You pay the tax anyway. And one of the first things survival quietly takes is ease. And when I say ease, I don't mean relaxation. Ease is the ability to move through the world without calculations. Some people wake up and simply are. Others wake up already asking, who do I need to be totally in this environment? That difference adds up. Survival also takes range. Over time, you narrow yourself, not because you lack depth, but because depth can be dangerous when misunderstood. So you flatten your effect, you regulate your joy, and you compress your anger. You soften your certainty, not to deceive, but to survive. And when you do that long enough, something shifts. You don't just hide parts of yourself from others. You lose access to them yourself. You forget what full expression even feels like. The branches stop growing because they were pruned too often. Another cost shows up as misplaced self-doubt, because when survival behaviors stop being rewarded, they're misread. You don't immediately blame the system, you blame yourself. You start asking, am I too quiet? Am I not confident enough? Am I doing something wrong? Even though what you're doing is actually what kept you safe. That internal conflict erodes trust, not in the system, but in your own instincts. Survival also costs rest. Not sleep, rest. Sleep repairs the body. Rest requires safety. And if your nervous system never receives an all-clear signal, rest never arrives. So even in stillness, you're alert. Even in silence, you're listening. Even in success, you're bracing. You can't sleep 10 hours and wake up exhausted because your body slept, but your centron never left the post. That's why the fatigue feels so heavy. It's not physical, it's vigilance fatigue. The exhaustion of never being able to put the shield down. And here's the cost few people want to name. Survival can cost identity. Not all at once, slowly. You become so fluent in a version of yourself that survives that you lose contact with the version of yourself that chooses. You stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, what won't cost me? That's not freedom. That's management. Risk management applied to a human life. The cost shows up differently across people. For some, it looks like under-recognized leadership. For others, emotional containment. For others, over-responsibility. For others, invisibility. But the common thread is this. The system benefits from your survival without paying the bills. And when cost goes unnamed, people internalize it as failure. They think, I should be stronger. I should be less tired. Why can everyone else handle this? But here's the truth. You aren't weak. You're in debt. This isn't a character flaw. It's an accounting error. You've been overpaying for safety and no one gave you a receipt. This episode isn't about blaming survival. Survival saved you. Honor that. Thank the century. But it also tells the truth. What kept you safe also asked something from you. And you're allowed to name that, because before repair, before healing, before reclaiming anything, you have to count the cost. Not to stay stuck there, but to stop carrying it silently. So here's the question I want to leave with you. What has survival been quietly paying for that no one ever acknowledged? And what part of you are tired, not because you're weak, but because you've been working too long without being seen? Next, we'll talk about inheritance, because these costs don't stop with us. They travel through families, through behaviors, through what gets normalized. But for now, stay here. Name the cost, because once it has language, it no longer owns you.